one of the bars in town that night, and we're talking about it, blah, blah, and he's talking. And this guy overhears us. And this guy is like totally obliterated drunk, but nice guy still, even totally drunk. And he's like, "Oh, you guys, you got to go to DSR. I heard you talking. Like, you should have went to the DSR. You got to go." And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's we were considering it. We might do it tomorrow. We didn't want to pay the money." So this guy says, "Oh," he introduces himself as, I forget his first name, but I'll never forget his last name, because he said his last name was Trump, and he said he was related to Donald Trump. And this was pre 2016 even, I believe, or right around that time, maybe 2015. And so obviously we're thinking,
Eddie Mackin's fishing. I gotta restart it.
dude, it's like 8 times. You can't do it. It's not a tongue twister.
It's confusing. Mackin's Rippin' Lips fishing trips. Eddie Mackin is back on Lake Apacon once again. Well, kind of. He's like got 19 trail cameras out too, but he is fishing in between hunting. And there is a really good walleye bite going on currently. And he knows where there are. The hybrid striped bass fishing right now is not that great. If you're looking to go hybrid striped bass fishing right now, it's not the best time ever to go do that. If you are looking to go for walleye, though, it is a good time to do that. And also, it can be done from the pontoon boats with multiple kids.
But that hybrid bite will pop back on any day. It's just going to come back, pop right back on. Watch.
As soon as I think the weather kind of like settles where it needs to be and, things stabilize out, yes, as soon as that chicken liver hybrid bite turns on, Mackin will be sitting on top of it. So if you're looking to get on hybrids, that chicken liver bite, I mean, I've been on that when it's dropping real hybrids for hours straight. Not guaranteeing that's what it's going to be. I haven't been able to find that myself in a couple seasons, but it is out there. But the occasional nice hybrid does come through on the chicken liver bite too. So yeah, the hybrids in the walleye. Call Mackin today. Hello and welcome to episode number 75 of the NJ Multi-Species Podcast. I am your host, Joe Santiago, and as always, my partner, Chris Pereira.
I am here.
Tonight's discussion is going to revolve around salmon fishing, or how Chris is referring to it, salmon snagging. We have a few different people that are going to come on and voice their opinion, and me and Chris are probably going to voice our own opinions. But first...
Now, I just want to say that you were basically, you were in charge of setting this up. So if everyone comes on and agrees with me, that is totally on you.
I don't care. I didn't ask them what side they're on. I just said, who wants to come on? Come on. I honestly don't know what side they're on. I don't care either. What's it matter to me? They're not going to change my opinion.
And the poll we put up was pretty one-sided.
The poll's deceiving because it is snagging. I mean, you can't deny that it's snagging. I mean, it is snagging.
I said, is it legit fishing or is it glorified snagging? And it was about 3 to 40, I think.
It's legit fishing, but you have to snag to do it. It's not the only species of fish that you have to fish for this way. We're going to get into that more, too. But before that, we're going to talk about some fishing. The Gambler was finally able to get out, and they got fish. They did actually pretty well. Got some yellowfin tuna. So if you are looking to run out to the canyon, the Gambler finally is getting out there.
Dude, it looked like they had That was just one trip, or was that multiple trips? Whatever it was, looked pretty nice.
It was a couple trips, I think.
It looked like some pretty good fishing.
He's on him. I mean, he texted me the other day. He said he's ready to go. If we want to go, we could go. He's ready. So the gamblers running for tuna. They're posting pictures. I shared one of the reports into Mayhem, I believe. Jerry Pastorino, he opened up the season just slaughtering sea bass as usual, boat limit. Then I think he limited porgies behind that when he was done. I think he did that a couple days. So the sea bass fishing's on fire.
Dude, the sea bass fishing is so good. I think we did something even more impressive than like filling a boat limit on Fishmonger. Like
Well,
we caught. Are you going to get into it later, or can we do it now?
we can do it now.
So we went. Striper season has pretty much just kicked off. There's some big fish around. Guys fishing at night. I think a lot is what they said. But we went out with Chuck during the day, and it was a striper fishing trip. And once Chuck switches to striper fishing, that's it. He's striper fishing. And we were joking around with him because it wasn't really good yet. Like you're hunting and picking at fish. And we were joking with him on the text, in the group text. And I was saying like, well, I'm gonna bring my sea bass stuff just in case. And he would just stop answering. He wouldn't even acknowledge it. And so we just show up and we brought some sea bass here. And while he was striper fishing, without getting in the way, we were able to like toss some jigs down and jig while we were drifting for stripers and pluck a pretty good amount of keeper sea bass without interfering with striper fishing. I think that's more challenging to me than anything else, to be able to sneak some other fish onto Chuck Manny's boat while he's striper fishing. That's
Basically,
top of the line. That's one of the greatest things I've ever done.
More of a, and I caught a puffer fish, which was just awesome too for some reason. The backstory on it was Chuck basically went out. He just got back. He went out search fishing Friday. Only caught one fish. It was a nice fish though. But he was pissed off. We could tell. He wanted to go back out fishing again. Sunday, we tried to persuade him to go freshwater fishing because he just made it sound so horrible. He wouldn't budge. He said, "Nah, I'm gonna look for stripers. If you guys want to come, come. If you don't." He's like totally talking us out of it, as usual.
It wasn't. I don't think we tried to persuade him. We just weren't sure if, like, does he want to do something else? Or,
well,
no?
he said when he say, "Oh, the striper fishing wasn't that good," I'm saying, "Okay, Chuck. Well, let's hit a lake for a day. It's okay to take a day off." But no, he's going back out to look for stripers again. Okay, so we're gonna go. So me and Chris started saying, well, the sea bass is on fire. And we were like texting Chuck in the group, like, Chuck, can we bring some sea bass stuff? If the stripers ain't hitting, maybe we could jig a limit of sea bass. And he's just ghosting us. Like, he's not even answering the text. Like, he's not even answering it. So I say, forget it. I'm not even going to bring my shit because I could tell he's furious. Chris says, screw it. He's bringing the shit anyway. So I actually got to the boat first, and I'm on the boat, and I see Chris coming down the dock with the spinning rod and, like, the jigging box, and I'm like, oh, God, here we go. But after we did start drifting and, like, Chris successfully jigged one up from the other side of the boat without disturbing the striper gear, like, Chuck became cool with it as long as you didn't bother the striper stuff. And he actually set me up a jigging rod, and me and Chris were both jigging sea bass off the opposite side of the boat from all the planer boards. So, yeah, it was pretty – I have it on video. I'll show it. But we ended up with, I think 4 or 5 stripers. 2 of them I got to see hit one of those custom C80 plugs that Caesar makes. I got to watch the fish waffle it on video. I can't release the video yet because the spot will send every boat in the Atlantic Islands right to where we were. But I do have a cool video of Caesar's plug getting whacked. So that was cool. And then I think after we caught 2 or 3 stripers and some porgies and other stuff like that, we moved on, right, Chris? That's when we started trolling planer boards. I think we got only one or two.
He didn't troll. He was drifting.
Drift. But we got 1 or 2 on the boards. I got one. I got to land one that was 47 pounds. It was a beautiful fish.
Yeah.
Was that the only one?
That one was fat. No, I think there was one more, but we did have a couple that popped off, I believe.
Yeah. So we ended with about I think 5 or 6.
Yeah, I don't know. I was sea bass fishing. I have no idea.
We had a couple giant sea bass eat 9-inch eels on the planer board and get them in somehow.
No, small ones, like shorts.
They were shorts. Yeah, bass, there was a 4-inch sea bass. One of them was a 4-inch sea bass that attacked a 9-inch eel. Yep. So the day turned out better than expected. Not a typical day on the time end, but not bad at all. Still incredible. It was awesome. And then on the way in, we hit like this unbelievable football field size, just bird mayhem. I have video of this too. Just birds everywhere. We were pulling snapper bluefish one after another. Chris definitely had a false albacore smash his lure and just miss it. I think I got it on video. And then Caesar pulled his first bonito out of the birds, and I think he was like really excited about that. He kept it. So it's just another like really cool day. Like we were breaking Chuck's balls about the multi-species thing, and he was like, "Nah, we're going striper fishing." And we actually ended up like catching some decent stripers and a bunch of other stuff too. So
that was other funny thing. So like, you know, anyone that saw that we were doing the multi-species trips with Chuck, see how many species we could catch during the summer when he's not striper fishing, and it's a blast. So for this one, we started counting the species, but we wouldn't count striper because he was striper fishing. So we're seeing the game now was how many different species can we catch other than the striper. So I kept counting and leaving the striper out, and he'd keep correcting me. No, we got 5 now. I'm like, no, 4. Striper doesn't count while you're striper fishing. We're doing the other species now.
Well, yeah, it was a fun day, a long day. We got in. It was dark. We had a blast, though. I'll have the videos coming out soon. The pictures are already out there on other websites. So I don't think we put them out yet, but they're out there. Other news, Chris, I think you went fishing at one lake and you got skunked from the shoreline. I don't know if you want to mention that lake or not, or...
Nah, I'm not going to go mentioning lakes around. I don't know. People get all butthurt over it. But, no, after we put up the tree stand, I had some time. Katie wanted to go fishing. She's still looking for that 10th species to get that achievement for the skillful angler. Salmon was one of the species she needed. I thought we could maybe do it from shore with what little time we had. So I swung by Dow's and I got some bait. Like I didn't mess around. It just didn't happen. Like I had four slip bobbers out with herring and did not get touched. There's a couple other guys fishing around and I didn't see anyone catch anything. I don't know. I think the freshwater fish get really confused. A lot of the species get all messed up when the weather is all wonky.
The only two things that I'm seeing right now very consistent are trout fishing, trolling for trout, or however else you want to fish for trout. Even in the river, it's starting to get to an acceptable temperature to go wild trout fishing again.
The temperature was fine, but there's no water in the stream.
Yeah, we need water. But if you can find some deep holes, you can get into some wild trout. Me and Chris actually saw a bunch of them the other day when we were putting the tree stand out. We didn't have a pole. And the walleye fishing on Lake Apacon, it looks to be great. I'm seeing a lot of pictures of walleye. Kevin Cool, Eddie Mackin. I mean, there seems to be really nice walleye coming up. Dwayne, I think, had a few pictures of some. So there's a good walleye bite. I don't know how good it is on Greenwood Lake. I haven't heard anything from anyone there, but good walleye bite on Lake Apacon. Other than that, I haven't heard too much freshwater. I think Chris is right. Everything's in that transitional period, and it's like kind of funky.
I mean, dude, like it's October and I'm going outside in shorts and a t-shirt and I'm sweating my balls off.
That should change this week around Wednesday. And also, if you're monitoring the salmon run in Pulaski, which this episode is going to be about, it seems like 2 days ago, which was Saturday or Sunday, it seems like the real main run actually broke open. A lot of fish moved from the estuary actually up the river, and now they seem to be through the entire river. So I would say this is like the big one. This is most likely the big salmon run. DSR is reporting 2 of the best days of the year in a row. So I think it's fairly obvious that this is it. So if you're looking to just suicide up there, it's probably within the window to do that now. But let's start to get into that discussion a little bit. Chris, I don't know how you want to start it off.
I mean, bring someone in. I mean, we're always airing our opinions on here. We want more other people's opinions. And just to be clear to anyone listening, we post all the time inviting anyone who wants to come on and talk about anything really, but every once in a while we put up like a specific topic, and it's usually in the Facebook group, NJ Multi-Species Mayhem Fishing group on Facebook. That's usually where we put it, and we pretty much invite anyone who wants to come on, and we do this every once in a while. This is one of those times we put up that poll for the salmon, wrote a little bit about it, guys busting each other's balls here and there. And then we just basically invite anyone that wants to come on and say whatever they want to say.
Okay, so
and you invited 2 people on at the same exact time, Joe?
Well, one of them told me they couldn't get in, so I brought the second one in, and then the first one got in, of course.
And now Deuce is asleep, and we can't do anything.
No.
Oh, he's awake. All right, pick one.
Right. How do we pick one?
I don't know.
Let's go by.
Who was technically here first?
So, as usual, guys, if you like our podcast and like our YouTube channel, please check out njfishing.com. A lot of this is made possible because of that website and Jerry Zagorski. Jerry's heading up salmon fishing, I think, tomorrow. So good luck to Jerry. But yeah, njfishing.com. It's completely 100% free. It tells you every party boat and charter boat that's great to go on, and has the archive of freshwater and saltwater. 27 years straight as New Jersey's #1 resource in fishing. njfishing.com. Okay, so we got 2 guests in here at the same time, which we don't usually do. We have Justin Lerner and Mark Mercer, 2 guys who have visited the salmon run from New Jersey. We're going to start with Mark Mercer. The topic of discussion here, if you weren't paying attention on Mayhem, is Chris says that salmon fishing is not fishing. He says it's just glorified snagging. I say he's wrong. I say it is fishing. It's salmon fishing, and that's how you target salmon. Mark, what's your opinion here?
Well, like the way I look at it is like it is fishing, but it should be treated more as like a group activity, like with your friends, kind of. Because yes, it's fishing because like the Webster's Dictionary definition of fishing is trying to catch a fish for sport or for money. So technically, you are fishing. But at the same point, if you go up there and expect like this like pristine, amazing, experience, that's not going to happen. Like
the definition of fishing, though, it doesn't involve tricking a fish into eating a hook.
According to Webster's, no.
Okay.
But based off of that definition you just gave, then like a commercial fishing boat catching fish with a net wouldn't be fishing, but
no, it would, because it's for money. It's for sport or for money. The act of catching a fish doesn't say anything about line, rod. I'm just throwing it out there. But at the same point, I can agree and think that like if you're going to go up there and expect a fishing experience, that's probably not what you're going to get on the run of the Salmon River.
And that's kind of what I was getting at. I'm being a wise ass when I say what I said, but I basically I do agree with you, and I think I said it last time to Joe. I said, well, Joe, like dragging a net on a commercial boat is fishing, spear fishing is fishing, bow fishing is fishing, but none of it is. I think I changed the definite traditional fishing, and like you said, if you go up there not truly understanding what it is you're going to be doing. And I experienced this the first time I went. The first day, the entire first day, first time I went.
For all the people that are watching that have actually never been there, do you want to explain what is actually going on that we're arguing over? Because they might not even understand what we're talking about.
Would you like me to explain, or?
I would love for anyone to do it but me. Anybody
Okay,
can.
well,
I had less experience.
I mean, I'll put it to you this way. So my father has been going to the Salmon River in Pulaski since the original run in I'm not sure if he went for the original run, but he's been going since 1978. I've been going up there since I was 7 years old. I've been doing it my whole life, before the internet, before everything. And the one thing that I can tell you is the first time I went up there when I was 7 years, I remember it like it was yesterday. I went up there and I was like, I couldn't believe the amount of people when I first walked out of the car. Like, I had never seen that many people fishing in my life before. And I was like, how am I even, I asked my dad, I'm like, how am I going to fish? What are we going to do? And then, like, as I said that, I saw someone set the hook and scream fish on. And from that moment on, I was like, I'm in. I got to check this out. But as I got older and I tried to take it like more seriously and make it more of like, actually fishing, like doing it the right way, I realized that I'm not going to have a good time because not everyone is up there for the same reason.
That's a good point too.
Pretty good way
Because
to put it.
Chris did yell at me when I was up there and said I'm there just on tradition, and there's a basis to that argument. Maybe I do go because of a tradition. I don't know. I want to hear what Lerner has to say over there. So I know he's hiding something from us.
Yeah. All right. So Justin, what's your background experience in going up there and salmon snagging? I mean, fishing.
Just to show Joe, I wore a shirt of one of the best American rock bands, Bon Jovi.
Oh,
I have to agree.
So, my God. I brought two Bon Jovi people on here at once?
You're not from New Jersey?
Ugh.
Anyway,
I'd rather not be from Jersey.
So I've been up and I fished salmon everywhere from the lake all the way up the rivers. And Mark is absolutely right. The strict definition of fishing really doesn't account for a lot of different things. It's pretty much pulling fish from the ocean, but let's not split hairs. What we're talking about here for most of what we do is sports fishing. And for sports fishing to be ethical, you want the fish to hit the lure or the bait, whether it's feeding or whether it's out of aggression. Now, when the second salmon start migrating, they go under a whole lot of physiological changes. And the longer that they're in the rivers, their muscles, their bodies are breaking down. They're really not feeding. I don't even know if they're aggressively hitting anything. If you're fishing down in the lower river when they first come in and they still have some nice color to them, they'll aggressively hit spoons, plugs, most of the stuff you throw at them. By the time they make it up to town pool and up above that, and they've had about 1,000 guys casting on them, snagging on them, all of that, I don't think that they're actually hitting. I think they're getting flossed. So, on rivers with less pressure, they may be more apt to hit further upstream, but I think they get to a certain point, and once they get that real dark color and start getting patches on them, I just think that they're getting flossed.
The only way, from my understanding, the only way one will hit up there is if they're guarding a bed and you continuously land it on the bed. They'll maybe eat it just to get it off the bed, but that's the only way.
Yeah, but I don't even think so. If you throw bait or lures at a bedding fish, most species, you need one cast. You'll see them aggressively come after it. The fact that you have to cast at them over and over and over again until they get hooked from the outside in with a piece of sponge, tells me that you're just waiting to floss them. Like I said, I mean, lower parts of the river when they
Oh
first.
no, we're not. I'm not denying that. I'm totally flossing them. There's no denying to. I'm
And
flossing.
just so we're clear, flossing them is just a fancy way of saying you're snagging them near their mouth.
Well,
Yeah.
flossing them's the act of dragging the line through their mouth so the hook gets caught.
Right, but you couldn't possibly do that. You can't see what you're doing half unless you're sight fishing them. But basically, you're just drifting this setup and hoping to accidentally snag them in their
Well,
mouth somewhere.
I mean, I would say that. Oh, go ahead, Justin.
I mean, a lot of times people are sight fishing them, but also I just wanted to make another point that my buddy Mark Mercer made, and that tradition and getting a group of your friends together in the outdoors to do something is that has its benefits as well. But if somebody's really, you know, sport fishing in that sense of the word, I really wouldn't consider, flossing that legitimate. Just my opinion.
Agreed. I mean, like Justin, I mean, you and I talk all the time, but like on our personal level, but what I would tell you is like if I was gonna go with like the friends that I went up to salmon fish with, I wouldn't even let you know
Yeah.
because like what we're gonna be doing isn't what you want to do. But I know that about you, and like the way that. There's a whole nother aspect to this too that I think people forget about, and what I think they forget about is how much of an economy driver the salmon run is to that part of the country. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been up there outside of the salmon run or outside of Steelhead, or maybe like, I'm sure you've been up there in the summertime for the lake, but it's a completely different game. Like the amount of people that show up and are brought into that economy to spend that amount of money. And a lot of those people depend on it. I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but I knew someone that worked at Fat Nancy's, and they told me that almost 70% of their business is from the salmon run.
I wouldn't doubt it. I love
that.
on the lake. So I go up a lot of times in July and August.
Mhm.
It's dead.
Exactly. And I agree with you on that too. If like this is what I was really wanting to say too, is if you really want to experience the fishery of Lake Ontario or the salmon run, even if you want to go to Erie, any of the other lakes, Huron, whatever, Superior, go do the lake. There's a lot. It's actually catching the fish that time.
Yeah, but the lake to me is bullshit. And I wanted Tarnowski on here because the lake is a boat with a 350 horsepower motor that drags the fish to the surface, and all you do is reel a flopping fucking fish in across the top of the lake. It's not like they're shutting the motors off and putting a fighting belt on. The lake is bullshit to me. Bullshit.
Yeah.
You wanted to invite a man who's just like at the back end of beating
invited
cancer
himself
to
on.
come in here and ream him about fishing the lake. What's wrong with you?
He
No.
invited himself on.
Joe, I'll tell you what. You hook a 25-pound Silver King on one of those deck riggers, and you're not going to be cranking in a fish skipping on the surface.
I've done it. That shit
And
sucks.
let me tell you something, Joe. On top of that, man, what would really impress me is if you could go into the lake and snag one out of there, floss one, sorry, at 150 feet. If you can do that now we've got somewhere because
Well, I want to
that's
ask. Here's my question for Justin. Chris constantly preaches that whatever the best method, most effective method is going to be, that's what I'm
Okay.
going to use. Once the fish get past the black hole on the Salmon River, they no longer eat. The only way to target them is to floss them. So you either floss them or you can't go fishing for them. You don't have a choice. So you choose.
Yeah.
You are right, but like back in the day, I don't know if any of you guys did. Any of you guys ever make it up there when the Michigan cricket season was open?
What?
Do you know what I'm talking about? When like you could actually fish in the river with bunker snags.
I mean, I see them still doing that in Oswego right now.
Oh shit! About 6 years ago, I saw the DEC pull someone over in our parking lot of the hotel. It was all these Italian guys, and they had the largest bunker snags I've ever seen. They're like, "We haven't been up here since '84," and the guy's like, "Well, we've changed the rules. You might want to read into that."
That is how you were allowed to snag.
That's what I said. It was cricket season, man.
And I believe those guys that they just didn't bother looking at the rules and they hadn't been there since that time and they were just coming back and they were totally surprised. I totally buy that.
By the looks on their faces, I actually believed it too. I was like, wow. All right.
That's pretty funny.
All right, so Justin hates salmon fishing in the river. Mark likes salmon fishing in the river.
Well, hold on.
Yeah,
This isn't about. I don't think this is about like you hate it or you don't hate it. Whatever. Like for me, when I'm telling you I don't think it's legit fishing. I mean, that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. Like that first time, that was the weird part for me. But I didn't like. I thought I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fish for them. Like I'm fishing for them, and like, I guess I almost thought that they were not eating it, but they would mouth it if you got it right. You know what I mean? I don't know. It wasn't explained to me exactly perfectly till I got there and actually started fishing with Matt. I went up with Matt until he actually showed me. Like before that, I guess I was picturing you're fly fishing, you're making this drift, and if you get the drift right, the fish are kind of in the current and they'll like kind of grab it or mouth it as it comes by just because it's near their mouth.
No.
Well, I mean, let me put it to you this way. When I was like 8 years old, a French Canadian dude told me this, and it's something I've kept in my head ever since then. He said, obviously, I'm sure you guys know the salmon, they taste the river. That's how they know where they're going to swim. So what they're doing is they're pointing their head upstream and all of their mouths are going like this. If you watch them, that's what they're doing. So basically what you really want to do is have your line come down and get, as they're going, here. And that's where it comes out. And you have to come with the right directional pull. I mean, once you realize that they're coming and they're going upstream, unless they're turning around to go back and swim, you have a pretty good chance to catch them if you can put the line in the right place. Same as any other kind of fishing.
Yeah.
So, it just seemed to
hold on,
me
let Justin talk. I want to hear him.
So I get what Chris is saying about the most effective method, but I mean, it just depends on what your goals are. Like, if you want to catch a fish that legitimately hits a bait or lure that hasn't been, even if it's hooked in the mouth and it's totally legal and all of that, if you want to Chris is talking about catching something with the most effective method in which they're actually going to strike. And that's why, I mean, like I said, in the lower parts of the river where you can drift skein and you can, fit floats and stuff, they no doubt attack it. That's one thing. But once they get higher up in the river, I mean, if you think that most of the fish that are getting caught are anything other than being flossed, then that's kind of misleading yourself. Now, if you're totally fine with that method of fishing, then great. If that's what you like, awesome. It's not for everybody, but cool. As long as you're not snagging fish and harpooning them or whatever,
Harpooning them. Yeah, as long as you're not walking around with a spotlight and a trident in the middle of the night, you're all right.
Exactly.
Hey, look, like I said before, the best way I could put it is once you accept it for what it is, it's fun.
It's a good point, man. Really. I mean, and like
it
once
is
you
fun.
realize, yeah, it is fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
Especially if you go with a good group of people.
Yeah, I'm not, and on a totally, and this last trip that we did, see this is only the third year I've done it. In the first 2 years, I just kind of went up, we hung out behind the lodge, I hung out with these guys from the Winfield Sports Club, and all cool guys, and we're just kind of chilling and catching some fish. I never really, it was what it was. Like fish came through, we picked at them, it died in the middle of the day, it came out, we just chill. This time, it was really, really slow back there when we started that day. And even some of the guys who were there the day before were like, oh, let's go check some other spots. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. Like there must be nothing coming back through here. And so this time the trip kind of turned into like, oh, let's go look here. Let's go try here. And the amount of effort we put in to go to all these different spots and hiking around to these different spots and waiting. And then it's just, and it's like very minorly successful. And it's just like, dude, what are we doing? Like, we're killing ourselves to snag a couple of fish. But I know that I feel like if we stayed behind the lodge and just kind of chilled and caught a fish here or there as they trickled through, I think we would have had a much better time. And to Mark's point, that's what he was getting at. Like,
no, what you just said is perfect because those fish are going to move in the early morning of the night. I mean, I've literally been in the town pool like at 4 a.m, sitting in a lawn chair, waiting for people to show up, just waiting for fish. And when I'm sitting there in the morning, you'll watch all of the salmon come up into like 1 foot of water because it's the easiest path of resistance for them to get up the stream. So basically what's happening is once everybody comes into the river and starts taking away their easier paths, they're funneled into these things, like runs or whatever, if you will, and they get stuck there, and they're not going to really move once they get into a deep hole. So going around and trying to find the fish, I don't know what you're really doing at that point. I mean, because they're going to move at some point.
Yeah, it was like we were acting as if we were like
Trout fishing.
fishing or something, like we're going around like but it wasn't. It was like it just, I don't know, it kind of ruined the experience for me.
Yep.
All right, guys, I want to thank both of you for both coming in here. I have to get John Dorn on here because he wants something. He has something to say too. Justin, thank you so much as usual for coming on. Mark, thank you so much for usuals coming on.
No problem, man. And thank you guys for doing the podcast. It's always been an interesting ride.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
It's so torturous, man.
Horrible.
I have to talk to this guy once a week. It's awful.
Oh, I'm not talking to you at all. I haven't said a word to you.
Oh my God, I don't have my bobber mug.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you soon.
Later, boys.
Dude, I forgot my bobber mug.
So two pretty interesting perspectives there. It seems like Mark Mercer enjoys the tradition of it, kind of like I do. Justin doesn't seem to care. But it is pretty. All right, so again, I waited another week has gone by, and I want to just bash Mike Herman and Yellow Dog Paddle, but I can't once again. I'm waiting for it though, so bad. But he did a morning trip out on Round Valley. 18 fish landed, 12 lake trout, 5 rainbow trout, and I posted that brown trout that is just unbelievably beautiful with those markings. He took the picture in the wrong aspect ratio. I got pissed at him and yelled at him about it. But, yeah, beautiful fish. And then he also, if you go on Yellow Dog Paddle's website, they have up now Jackie with a picture of the salmon. It's a beautiful salmon. Chris, it looks, I don't know if you saw this fish yet. It looks similar to almost like the one you and Chuck caught. It's not as big as that, but it is another monster for sure.
Yeah,
it's
I'd
a
have
beautiful
to check
fish.
with the guy who we fed that salmon to, but
this fish, yeah, I'm gonna ask him actually if we could repost this maybe Friday. So if you're or can you pop this fish up on this right now?
Of course.
All right, we're gonna pop the fish up right here. There it is. There she is. All right, awesome. Congrats, Jackie. Call Mike Herman today and have a bad trip with him so I can. So yeah, two pretty interesting, different perspectives. It seems like Mark Mercer kind of is more into the tradition of it every year since he's little, like me. Justin doesn't seem to care. The definition Mark brought up, it kind of still seems like it does qualify as fishing by definition, but if you've never been there and you're deterred by the horror stories that you have heard, the horror stories mostly are true, but you should still go if you're interested, because I've taken people that end up loving it and going the rest of their life every year, and then I've taken other people that hate it and never go back. I love it. I have a lot of friends that I took there, and now they go every year. So it's either hit or miss. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. It's very different. It's not like any other fishing that you've ever done before. Why?
I don't know if I'd say it's one way or the other, because even like I don't hate it. Stop saying I hate it. I don't hate it.
All right, not you. I have taken people up there though that just say, "Oh, the fish don't eat," and I'm not coming to do this ever again. I
can understand that, but I'll agree with you. I think everyone who enjoys different types of fishing should definitely try it.
I mean, those lakes in the central United States, southern like where that girl is from, that we know that is eventually probably going to come on here, that fish for those paddle fish. That's another type of fish that doesn't eat. The only way they fish for them is by trolling snagging hooks. I know in Alaska there's a lot of lakes where you're just throwing snagging hooks and bringing them in like your bunker fish. I mean, it's just, that's salmon fishing. I guess if you paddle fish, we don't know anything about paddle fishing, but I guess if you do paddle fish, that's how you have to paddle fish, drag treble hooks.
If that's the fishery, and in this case, it basically is after a certain point, like Justin pointed out, and he likes to hit them before they're at that point, which is cool too. It's two completely different.
Oh, I've done that.
Fisheries.
Hey, listen, if and I'm not. Let me make something clear. I'm not bashing that. I love that. I'm also not bashing the lake either. I'm just doing that to break Tarnowski's balls, but I like the lake. I always complain about the motor run. I hate fighting fish with running motors, but I even do it on my own boat. But if you do get a chance to do that, the skein bite. What the skein is when a female salmon is caught and cut open before she's ready to drop her eggs. The eggs aren't loose inside. They're all packed tight together. That's called skein. They take that out and you put these huge chunks on the hook, and they're red, and they cover them in pink cure. And you just let these big chunks of skein float under a slip bobber, and the bobber goes down, and you're fighting a salmon. I've never done that at the Salmon River. I've only done it at Oswego, and it is fun as hell. But the slip bobber, Chris, I'm telling you, when you do that, it's so precise on it. Like, if your slip bobber, if they're at 17 feet and you set it to 15 feet, like, you're not going to catch a fish. Like, you move the slip like 1 foot, and the next drift you have a salmon on. Like, that's why I don't like doing it, because it's so, like, it's such a deep water column and you don't know exactly where they are. So you have to move the slip a lot. But if you hit the right number, you'll have the bobber down all day on giant salmon. It's fun as hell, and it happens at Oswego a lot more often than Salmon River.
So you don't like doing that because it's more difficult?
I don't like doing that, number one, because it makes your hands a mess. You got pink hands for 4 weeks after you touch that. You'll see at Oswego on the wall, everyone's wearing rubber surgical gloves.
Hey, real quick.
And number two, the wall, I don't really keep salmon. So, like, fighting them down the Oswego wall under a slip thing and going through hell to try to land one, I don't really give a shit because I'm not keeping it. I'd rather be in my waders and fight one on my fly rod. But I would do that, like, for something to do. John,
that fresh coho you caught that I kept and I had smoked over there, that's pretty good.
They're good. They're absolutely good as long as it's fresher. John Dorn is saying he can't get into the chat, so I guess he's just a loser as usual when it comes to technology. Well, that's why he doesn't have live scope. And he just throws rubber stuff because he just can't do anything that involves any of this.
Real quick before we help him get on, if we can get him on at all.
Just if you're new to watching the podcast, this guy's been on here about 4 times already, so he ain't new to this.
There's that many, and he still can't do it, huh?
Yeah, he's been on here quite a few times.
Oh God. Anyway, I just want, before I forget, I just want to kind of give some pointers of advice for anyone that wants to go up there. And it's not about the fishing, it's about enjoying the experience, because I'm new to this. I can't give you any tips on how to hook these things because I'm pretty bad at it. But as far as enjoying the experience, like you talked about the horror stories, and I'm sure they can be true, obviously, and you want to try to avoid that. So you got like all these people, right? That's easily avoidable if you book one of these lodges that are right on the river. And you have to book them early. You have to book them like the year before, I feel like, or more.
Well, that's actually a hot topic. That's a hot topic on the Salmon River. That could be a whole nother episode in itself, because the river itself is totally becoming privatized. And that's probably where the future of fishing is going to end up. And it might not be good. It might be good. It might be good. I don't know. I like to fish the DSR. That's usually where I go with my kids, and I know a lot of people really, really hate the DSR. They think it's like the Yellowstone with Kevin Costner. Like they just want the people to give the land up, and they're not gonna.
Dude,
And I don't blame them.
Did I ever tell this story on the podcast, or to you in general, about the guy we met in the bar?
I know that story. I don't think you ever said it on the podcast, though.
Well, while John Dorn is diddling himself trying to get on here,
John Dorn's never getting on. Like, he's sending me screenshots and shit. I don't have time for it. I'm watching Monday Night Football. I'm done with him.
he just has to click the link and it brings him in. Anyway.
No, he's
all right. So I'll tell the short version of the story. So me and my buddy Mike are up there. This was not salmon fishing. This was not one of the times I went up salmon fishing. I believe we were up there in the winter months for steelhead, and he was the veteran up there. I was just following his lead. He asked me if I wanted to go. I almost never say no to fishing unless I'm already fishing. So we're up there. We fished the first day. We considered going to DSR, but we didn't. We tried some other spots that he thought would be good. The fishing wasn't good, and we're sitting in one of the bars in town that night. And we're talking about it, blah, blah, and he's talking. And this guy overhears us. And this guy is like totally obliterated drunk. But nice guy still, even totally drunk. And he's like, oh, you guys, you got to go to DSR. I heard you talking. Like, you should have went to the DSR. You got to go. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's we're considering it. We might do it tomorrow. We didn't want to pay the money. So this guy says, oh, he introduces himself as, I forget his first name, but I'll never forget his last name because he said his last name was Trump, and he said he was related to Donald Trump. And this was pre 2016 even, I believe, or right around that time, maybe 2015. And so obviously we're thinking, oh, this guy is just pulling our chain, like he's drunk off his ass, like he thinks he's hilarious. But he just kept going. And he told us, I own property that's in the middle of the DSR on the river. I own and I won't sell it to them. And so they have to let me in. Like, he has like a leeway, like a pass.
Yeah.
Where like the DSR can't charge him because he owns property in between their property on the river.
And he probably lets them use it, no?
Well, again, we're thinking this guy's just making shit up because he's he's leaning on stuff, like totally obliterated drunk. And he said, if you guys want to go to DSR, you go for free. You go with my passes, you go for free. And we're like, okay, buddy. And he's like, you guys go in there tomorrow? And my at this point, my buddy Mike is done with him. He's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, all right, I'll leave the passes there for you. And like, keep in mind, this guy's falling over himself. I'll leave the passes there for you tomorrow morning. He's like, and we're like, yeah, but we're going real early. He's like, they'll be there. And like, as he's falling on his butt, he's like carrying him out. So whatever, we don't think much of it. We go home, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, go to a couple of spots, and we're driving. Fishing is not good again. And we look at each other like, should we try the DSR? And I'm like, dude, what do you think? What are the chances? We decide to go to the DSR, but we don't think this guy was legit. And I go, what are the chances this guy is legit? And he's like, 0. And I'm like, well, we got to go through there anyway. Like, I'm just gonna say, like, when we go into like, you go into like that little hut, the
booth.
house there, yeah, the booth. And I'm like, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna say, hey, I can't remember the guy's first name. What was his first name? Mike. I would just call him Tom Trump. Tim Trump. I couldn't remember. But I went in there and I said, oh, the guy. He's like, oh, hey, Tim Trump left us passes here. And the guy looks at me and he goes in the back, and I'm like, looking at my buddy. Guy comes back out and hands us 2 passes.
That's so cool.
For free. And I look at my buddy Mike and I go, thank you. And we walk out, and my buddy Mike's like, what the fuck? Like, we couldn't believe it.
For the people listening that don't know the DSR is the first 2.5 miles of the Salmon River. So after they come into the estuary, they enter the Salmon River, and the first 2.5 miles of that is the DSR. The DSR is privately owned on both sides, and they own the river bottom, so you cannot even float through it on a boat, because if you bump one rock, they'll have you arrested, so no one even dares do that. But it's $110 a day for one person to fish for one day. And a lot of people might say that sounds crazy, but if you're listening to all these horror stories about salmon fishing and you don't want to deal with that, guess what? You could just pay the $110. The DSR limits how many passes are sold per day, which for salmon season is only 250. So on a 2.5 mile stretch of river, you only have a maximum of 250 people. You won't be fighting crowds. When you do fight a fish downstream, you can come back to your spot without worrying about being gone. In Salmon River, if you step out of the spot you're standing in, you're losing it. It doesn't matter if you're fighting a fish. If you walk away, you're losing your spot. The DSR, people that paid $110 to go fishing for one day tend to have a little more fishing etiquette than what you're going to see on the outside of the stream. Trust me when I tell you that. So before you start screaming that $110 is a lot of money, when you're going up there with two little kids like I am and a wife, and you kind of just want privacy and you don't want to see people fist fighting and screaming at each other, and you just want nice relaxation, I'll pay every time. And when I started going to the DSR, I think it was $45 for a day pass, and now over as however many years, it's up to $110, and I still pay it. So yeah, the DSR, but like I said, a lot of people hate the DSR. They don't think it should be privatized. Now you have the Tailwater Lodge at the top of the river in Altmar, which bought a huge piece of property. Now they own the schoolhouse pool and the wire hole. And a lot of lodges, like Chris is saying, the Golden Eagle owns a giant private stretch behind it. The Steelhead Lodge, the same. Eagle. The Double Eagle. And then the one next to that, where we had the Fish Smoke, he owns another large. So it's kind of the future of where that's going. Like, you're going to probably be staying at a hotel and fishing behind the hotel, because that's where they're going to own.
I mean, yeah,
it's like a privatization of fishing kind of thing going on.
I do hope, even though I enjoy taking advantage of that, I do hope it doesn't keep going in that direction. I hope it stays a split. Like, I'm glad there are spots where you can pay a little bit extra money to stay at a lodge and fish behind the lodge without dealing with a lot of bullshit. But I don't.
Well, that was what I wanted John Dorn to come on, because there's a new place called Sportsman's Paradise. That's a campground, but they own a huge stretch of river, and you pay like I think it's $20 a person or something to fish there for the day, and that's where John Dorn was. So, like Chris is saying too, I mean, if you're interested and you're a member of Mayhem, a lot of these guys that have been up there, they know where to stay. And they know where to go. They might be able to give you some pointers.
Yeah, that was my other piece of advice. If you want to go up there to try this, and I think you should if you haven't, is 100% go with someone who knows what they're doing.
That's it.
100%. Do not go up there and wing it unless you really want to get frustrated and you're just ready to. I don't know. I'd freak out. It'd be awful. I couldn't imagine.
We are going to be back next week with Nor'easter finally.
Are we giving up on John Dorn?
John Dorn's done. Yeah, he's dead to us. Right. Nor'easter. They will be here next week. I'm excited. I love Nor'easter. I've been waiting to have them on for a long time. I actually already got a lot of questions for them from the internet. If you have questions for John or Marilu from Nor'easter, email them to whatever our email is. I don't even know what it is. You'll find it on there somewhere.
It's pretty easy, Joe. It's
it is
species@gmail.com.
There it is. What he said, email it for nor'easter questions. We will be back next week. If you are going salmon fishing, good luck. I know Jerry Zagorski, Mike K, and a bunch of our friends, Scott Howard, Stangl, everyone's heading up this week. Good luck to everyone. We will be back next week.
Are you sure?
I hope.
I can't believe I just did an entire episode without my bobber mug.
All right, well, you got to say stuff for the fish so we can go.
It feels weird. I feel naked. What am I supposed to do?
You can see the shirt behind it.
Huh? Suffer for the fish.
There it is. Good night.